Dawn here with Romance Happy Hour. Yay. And we are actually back together, Dylan. I know
I
we've had a
know.
couple
It's
a
been a
couple
while.
episodes. Yeah, where
I
we
feel like
were
I haven't
like,
seen you in forever.
I know. So I was absent last time. Let's see. I was I think I was in Idaho
Okay.
camping. I did not have reception, so that's why I had to take that one off. And then you were at a conference, right? Before
I was
that?
in I don't remember.
I don't
I
know
think
you've been traveling a lot.
yeah, I don't remember where I was last time.
Mhm.
I've been to I was in Las Vegas for Book Lovers Con, and then I was I drove my kiddo to their internship halfway across the country. I don't remember where I was. It's all a blur, Dawn.
I know.
It's the end of the school year. Everything's a blur.
Yes. Yes, it's such a blur that Dylan, on Monday, like my kids got out on Friday, and on Monday, my son's asking me where his phone watch is. He's got one of those little, because we don't like them to have real phones. But he's like, "Where's my phone watch, Mom? Is it in your car?" And I look at our little thing, and it's still at the school,
Of
and
course.
school is out.
Was he able to get it, or is the school building closed for a
Yeah.
while?
So Darby is such a small town that we have one teacher per grade.
Mhm.
And the principal loves me because I substituted a couple times. So I saw him at the grocery store and I'm like, "Hey, principal, my kid left his watch." And he said, "I got a couple minutes. Let's run over there." So
Oh,
we
nice.
did find it. We found the
Good,
watch in the teacher's classroom still. So,
good.
yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. But that's how our summers started out. What about yours? You got kiddos home?
Um, yes.
Home and
So,
fun?
well, yes and no. The 2 in college, one of them is across the country on an internship, and then the other one is kind of here and not here because we moved her into an apartment because the lease starts on June 1st, but she's still home now working. But
Mm.
she's gonna go because her roommate is already living in the apartment and is working at school. But then we
Is
have an
she
extra this summer. We have an extra kid. I have a bonus kid this summer because my oldest's roommate for this fall has an internship by us. So she's living with us this summer. So it's kind
Oh,
of like this, we're coming and going, and it's
yeah.
all it's all good. You guys
You
have
got
that, like random people that just come and stay with you for a while? It's good. We are really
yeah,
enjoying having her.
nice.
So
You got 3 plus 1 then. Two plus one in that, well, three. You're back to the normal number
yes.
in the house.
Well, and then my middle one's roommate came and lived with us for a couple weeks after school got out until they got their apartment. So it literally is just I don't know. I feel like we have a
A hotel,
rotating
you should
door.
Airbnb,
Kinda.
you should charge
Yeah.
Airbnb prices.
Oh well, you don't get the full Airbnb experience at my house, so that would
Okay.
be bad. But we are
Gosh,
joined tonight by two amazing
yes.
authors. I want to make sure we mention them real quick.
Yeah, Loren Sorenson and Emma Alisyn. And I'm assuming I'm saying those right because they seem like normal names. So if I'm
Good
not, let
job,
me
John.
know. I'm horrible with names. Today I called a Michelle Michael. And so I was like, I better double check on all the names I say today. So yeah. Dylan, what are you working on? I know you're
Oh,
always so busy.
right now I am well, my other pen name, I'm working on a brand new Mountain Man series that I will be announcing soon. And then Dylan has a book, the second book in the Bad Boys of Newbridge is coming out in August.
Fun.
So never a dull moment.
No. Yep. Awesome. So
Oh, you didn't
ladies,
say what you were working on. I'm
oh,
sorry.
well, I'm working on trying to be able to write a little bit.
Okay.
I'm working on life right now. It's kind of crazy with the summer picking
Mm-hmm.
up and everything. So yeah, I'm trying to get those 500 words a day in for my historical. But
Good.
yeah, yeah. Lauren, let's start with you first because you volunteered to read first, and we're very grateful for that. So let us know a little bit about you, whatever you want our readers to know.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. I hail from Austin, Texas, and I don't know. I think I started writing in middle school on and off, and I think it was always romance. So I started really writing again into August 2022 for my True Heart series. The first book that I wrote that I'm still writing is called Love in Plain Sight, and it literally was a combination of what I do in real life combined with all the romance I was reading. So I work in lingerie retail in my muggle job. So I know all the things about bras and fitting and all that, and I love doing it. So, but that became my first hero, my first heroine, Isla, and that quickly morphed into me taking a magnet and making it into a prequel novella with Isla's brother Caleb and her best friend Rayanne, and their story, and that's called The Trouble with Christmas, and it's a holiday romance. But I just released The Reluctant Star, and that came out last Thursday. And it's an Eros and Psyche holiday. It's an Eros and Psyche modern day Hollywood romance. So it came from a Gods and Goddesses anthology, and I expanded it by a chapter. And I'm hoping to expand it with the trials. So I did a lot of research on the myth itself and just had a lot of fun recreating this world. And it started with Aphrodite, and after I finished reading it, I was like, God, Aphrodite sounds like such a real housewife. And it started with that and exploded into this modern world where gods and goddesses live in Hollywood, and it's just a lot of fun. So
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a fast read because I use little things like texting to show how Eros and Psyche fall in love without actually seeing each other. And that plays into a little bit with what I'm going to read. But then I also have, because it's set in Hollywood, let me see if I can find an example that's real fast. Because it's in Hollywood, I made tabloids and newspaper articles, and there's multiple narratives because the story just lent itself to so many ways to share the story. And all of my advanced readers loved reading it so far. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to see what people think about it.
Great. We can't wait to hear from it.
Yeah. How about let's hear from Emma first, and then we'll get to reading.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Emma, tell us a little bit about you and anything you want our viewers to know.
I'm horrible at that sort of thing. Well, I'm a mom of 5. I've been an indie author for about the last 9 years. And in the last 2 years, I've finally transitioned into writing where my heart is, which is epic women's fiction, dark fantasy, the romantic subplot.
Ooh, wow.
Love that.
Yeah, I call it that because I started out calling it fantasy romance, but then I realized I was always slightly off market. It's only in like the last 2 months that my author friends and I pinpointed why it was always slightly off market. And it turns out it's really just women's fiction with fae and swords and dragons. So that's
I love that.
Yeah.
I love a good what do they call it? Fantasy. Like honestly, like especially movies. What am I watching right now? I don't know. I'm watching several shows at the same time, but they're all fantasy related. So I love it. I'm very excited to hear from you guys. Should we have Loren start? Loren, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to start.
Yeah.
So I'm reading from chapter 5, and this is the moment when Nora, who is my embodiment of Psyche, realizes that the man she's been talking to is Marlon Spencer, who is Hollywood's darling and the embodiment of Eros. And she's taking the man that she's been texting to for the last couple of weeks and realizing that this person is not what she expected. So I hope you guys enjoy. If Nora was honest, all this texting was a test for herself to see if she could overcome the anticipation and accept the reality that faced her when meeting Spence again. She hadn't seen his face. Not really. That Friday, Spence covered his face with sunglasses and a hat, and she hadn't had time to study his features. Her memory was a blur of his chiseled cheekbones and broad shoulders. She felt intimidated by the possibilities that could make up the truth. Nora hadn't wanted to see him if it could reveal the mystery, certain that the reality would be a disappointment for her. It was ridiculous to hold on to the notion that knowing his looks would be disheartening. Nora was more upset by the real possibility that he could be the answer to her dreams rather than a disappointment. The idea that he could be everything that she ever wanted was terrifying. Nora finally agreed to meet up with Spence tonight at the Apollyon Tea and Coffee after work today. She didn't think that she could wait any longer. If she was honest with herself, when Genevieve asked her to work a double shift today, Nora agreed so that there was a safe space to meet up with Spence. Anticipation tickled her skin all day, and she begged Patrice and Sammy to hang out with her until he walked in. Just as Nora completed Spence's flat white, the doorbell chimed, revealing a new customer. She knew it was him without having to take a look. Her stomach churned in expectation, a small smile curving on her lips. Nora took a deep breath, slowly exhaling, trying to settle her nerves. When she looked up, the tall, well-built body before her was the form she saw in her memories. But the face, well, it was one she would recognize anywhere. In fact, she had seen it every day, in the tabloids. Nora blinked stupidly, trying to reassemble the image in front of her. When she opened her eyes again, he was still there. Old blue tea, musty ball cap covered in tawny locks with wavy blonde hair and ice blue eyes. Spence, she mouthed, and he nodded. Not Spence with a C, but with an S, for Marlon Spencer. He watched her carefully, unsure of what to expect. Honestly, she didn't know how to process the revelation that Marlon Spencer was her Spence. Nora scanned the coffee shop quickly. There were some groups of students gathered around tables for projects. Patrice and Sammy sat within talking distance of her. Patrice turned around to look at Marlon Spencer and did a double take. She took her notebook, covering her fence so she couldn't see, and whisper screamed, "You've been texting a movie star for 2 weeks? Why don't you whisper scream a little louder, Patrice?" Sammy grumbled. Nora heard the rumble of Marlon's laughter, and Patrice blushed as she hid her face behind her notebook. Nora snorted at her friends, then made herself look at Marlon Spencer as he slowly made his way into the coffee shop. No one seemed to notice that the celebrity as he walked closer to her, but Nora knew she couldn't risk wasting time before people started talking. They would need to discuss several points before anything changed officially between them. Was it dumb luck that day when the Superman of her heart turned into someone just as infamous? Why hadn't she thought to question it more? Why hadn't she pressed beyond the contented haze that let her grow complacent? The reality of Marlon Spencer standing in front of her was excruciating. He was just so accessible to everyone. But he had been so patient as Superman Spence. They had laughed all day together, and he was always so kind, never broaching topics that made her feel uneasy. Did Marlon Spencer know how important that was for her? She glanced slyly back at him and shook her head. Of course he understood that insecurity. Of all the people in the world to ask for her number, Nora just shook her head with disbelief. How likely was it that he knew how often people compared her to Vivian Spencer? A new layer of anxiety crept over her body, unsure of his interest and unsure if his interest was because of her likeness to his mother. Gods, if he liked her because she looked like his mother, whatever was between them would end tonight. Marlon paused at the register, his handsome, chiseled features on display. Nora made herself look at him, his beautiful face grim with vulnerability, his eyes widened slightly with anticipation. For what? She wasn't sure. He was Marlon freaking Spencer. He didn't have anything to worry about. Nora, he acknowledged her softly, deeply intoned with meaning. His baritone was vulnerable and utterly intoxicating. She couldn't keep her eyes off him. If Nora blinked, would he transform into someone else? If she closed her eyes, would he disappear? And then she'd wake up from a dream? I need a drink, she burst out finally. A tentative smile on Marlon's lips popped his dimples with a burst of laughter. Nora blushed as she finally turned away to the espresso machine. Just give me a moment and we can go walk out back. Nora handed him his flat white and set to work on her double-shot dirty chai latte. She wasn't sleeping tonight. How could anyone think of sleep when the man who tumbled into her life by accident was an international superstar? She didn't want to think about what that meant for the future, nor could she comprehend what it would mean for the reality of her dreams with the Marlon Spencer. Nora's body knew from muscle memory all the steps it took to make her favorite drink. Each time she looked up, he was there, soaking her in like she was the sunshine that nourished the earth. It was intimidating to have those baby blues look at Nora with such intent and focus. She didn't know how to process all of his attention on her. Nora tried to remember what she knew about the celebrity beyond acting. It seemed like the tabloids liked to play up the playboy lifestyle, never committing to an individual and always just being content to love freely. She never carried much weight with what the gossip pages said. With Marlon's open face in front of her, Nora imagined what life would look like as she questioned the implications for them. What would her life be like exactly? The world stopped rotating and the breath in her chest was tight. Nora made herself look away from Marlon Spencer and over to Patrice and Sammy. Patrice was openly gaping at them, while Sammy's goofy smile was shadowed with concern. Are you all right? He mouthed to her. I'm okay, she told Sammy. It'll be fine. He nodded his understanding, then seemed to swat Patrice into more acceptable behavior. Marlon glanced over at them and snorted with laughter. Can you watch the register for a little bit? Nora asked Patrice, her voice slightly cracking. She looked up to his handsome face. We need to talk, and it shouldn't take too long. The words came out with less warmth than she felt, and Marlon's eyes sharpened at the change in her tone. Yeah, Patrice managed. See, she visibly shivered as she came within inches from Marlon. Nora was pleased to see that he didn't use his figure to intimidate his friend, and that he just acknowledged her without any airs. Gods knew didn't need to. Good, thanks, Nora replied, handing her chai latte to Marlon. Take these. She tilted her head towards the kitchens in invitation for Marlon to come up from behind the register and walk their way to the alley of the Apollyon. They would have the privacy needed to discuss all that lay between them. When Nora scanned the coffee shop, she found its patrons were quite distinctly quiet, all eyes on her and Marlon. Nora? Marlon was eager to start then and there, which she wouldn't allow. Even if the shock of his identity weighed on her, she felt protective of him and their privacy. What they said to each other was nobody's business but their own. Not yet, Nora replied, focusing on getting them out into the alleyway. Not until she opened the door and led Marlon Spencer into the alley. Nora. Was it that reverent tone with which he spoke her name that finally made Nora want to snap? She felt the same sort of deference towards Spence, but knowing it was Marlon Spencer the whole time rattled her confidence. Was this a joke, or perhaps a mistake? Did he spend every waking moment of free time talking to her? On purpose? You lied to me, Spence. Nora's eyes turned on him in accusation. The knowledge was building up slowly, the hurt feelings making their presence known in all the astonishment and doubt. Nora was sure this had been a mistake. By omission, he didn't disagree. Nora looked around for a place to put the drinks, found the abandoned desk Genevieve used to for her smoke breaks, and placed the cups there. I am sorry for it. Why? Nora's eyes narrowed in suspicion. Why what? Marlon asked, a small smile quirking up on his lips. Nora didn't think he was an idiot, but the question begged her to reconsider. She smirked, then became transfixed by his broad shoulders and the contours of his face that were highlighted by the lamplight and the shadows. Gods, he was so handsome. Nora couldn't help the thought that had come to her. Holy Hades, this man was so effortlessly beautiful. He was wearing that God's danged worn-in t-shirt and a baseball hat that was more useful in the trash, and he still looked freaking perfect. Nora sighed. This was not going well. Within 30 seconds of being alone with Marlon Spencer, Nora Reed was melting into a puddle at his feet. She needed to remain focused and remember why she had put him into the alley in the first place. Nora and Marlon needed to address some hard truths that faced them. Why lie? You know what my name is now, he replied simply. He took a sip of the drink closest to him. Fates, this is good. But it's not my white flat. What is it? It's a dirty chai, Nora reflexively answered. Chai tea with espresso in it. I made it a double shot. She felt a reflexive smile dance across her features before she could contain it. My fault, no doubt, Marlon replied, flashing her a beautiful smile. A dimple quirked, and Nora had to reflexively hold on to her resolution. Gods, that smile was so panty melting. Keep talking, Spence, as Nora said as she reached for her dirty chai. Warmth spread for her fingers as her hand touched his, but she couldn't touch if the blush came from his touch or his personal proximity. Nora smiled grimly, forcing herself to stay on task. It's a name everybody knows, he continued, searching her face thoroughly. And I didn't want to risk telling you my whole name until what? You thought you could trust me entirely? Nora scoffed. Did you think I was unworthy? The lie of omission pulled Nora away from the comfort offered by the haze. She felt herself questioning the truth between them, knowing she shared more of herself with Marlon Spencer than she had with most people in her lifetime. The pace of her trust and their connection was disarming, and she marveled at how much she offered him in such little time. Nora waited for a response, just as the fates waited for the door to see what would happen next. The stakes were just too high, and not for the obvious ones like superstardom or complicated schedules. Nora willed her heart to shrink down to a normal size. She tried to stop all the heart flutters that pulsed in her veins with the opportunities before them, should they come to an understanding. Nora took a sip of her chai to hide her facial features and dim the sadness etched across her features. She masked the aches that pulled onto her at the thought of losing her Superman if he couldn't answer her questions to her satisfaction. No, Marlon replied quietly. He paused, his features turning blank as he exhaled a shallow breath. Never, Nora. I would never withhold something like my name because I didn't deem you worthy. The value of worth changes with everyone and how they view the world. Worth is so subjective and so difficult to quantify, but just as beauty is subjective to the eyes of its beholder, so is the value of worthiness. I would never, ever quantify what esteem I have by withholding. Marlon laughed at himself. Gods, I'm rambling like an idiot, and I'm sorry for it, but it's true, Nora. You've lived your whole life in Los Angeles. You know what this town is like. I didn't want to burden you with the weight of the Hollywood darling. The currency in this town is a name and the value set in its worth. I wanted to know what it was between us. I wanted to know that what's between us is more than just those expectations. Oh, Nora replied, feeling slightly humbled. It wasn't often people could shock Nora with their philosophizing. It rather invigorated her senses, inviting debate and conversation. But the sight of the A-list movie star rambling about the philosophical quantifications of worth shut up her protest quickly. He sounded so much like the Spence she knew through their texting that the Hollywood Marlon Spencer, merged into him right before her eyes. Should I keep going?
All right. No, that was great.
Okay.
Dawn's computer died while you were reading.
Oh no. Oh no.
So she'll be back in just a minute. She said she was going to pop back on her phone. But no, that was great. Thank you for sharing your work with us.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that was really enjoyable. And yeah, oh my gosh, you were talking about coffee. Like I could really use a coffee right now.
Yeah.
But no, I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, I'm not sure where she should be back in just a minute. But in the meantime, we can get into some questions. I would love to know kind of how you first started writing. I know you shared before we went live that you kind of have been writing all your life, but what kind of prompted you to finally kind of pull the trigger, and this will be for both of you. But what kindly, prompted you to finally pull the trigger and publish?
For me, it was that I knew that I was a writer, and I realized I didn't have anything to my name, and I wanted to share something. So that started with The Trouble with Christmas, and I grew to love the autonomy that comes with publishing indie. All the choices I made for formatting and word choices and of course, going to editors and having them help craft what you're writing, but just the freedom that you get publishing indie really brought it back to life for me. But like I said, the dream with Isla and all the romance, that story got a hold of me so strongly that it was like, you have to write me. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm writing the story. And the characters kept talking to me and I fell in love with them. And it was just a natural progression of events. So
It's like
it was
magic
just,
when that happens, isn't it? When you are
yeah,
so deep into the story that they're constantly talking to you all day long, even when you're, at the day job or, doing
yeah.
things around the house. It's like, okay, but I have to, I actually have things I have to do. You have to wait.
They often wake me up. So like I'll be in sleep and like they'll be talking to me in my dreams. I'm like, fine, I guess I need to write this down before I
Mhm,
forget all the words.
mhm.
So
How about you, Emma? What made you finally decide? I don't know how long you've been writing, but what made you, decide to? Did you publish your first book, or did you sit on it for a while, or how did you first start to
Um,
publish?
I've been writing since I was a child, but I had 4 children and I was broke. So I went on the internet and looked up how to publish erotica and
Mhm.
went from there. Um, and actually used publishing to support my family until about 2 years ago, which is when I BookFunnel hired me. So now the publishing is um, my side gig, ironically, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. So I took the job so I could write what my heart and my soul wants me to write rather than thinking about the purely commercial aspects.
Mhm.
So that it's been a beautiful 2 years.
I didn't realize you worked for BookFunnel. We love BookFunnel. I don't know if we often get a lot of new authors who watch the show or listen to the podcast. Do you want to tell people what BookFunnel is?
Well, we are a ebook and audiobook delivery platform. You can take control of your own sales to direct sell your ebooks and your audiobooks through us, and we will deliver those for you. There's also cross promotion tools, which I use the heck out of. It's an invaluable tool. And there's also tools for ARC delivery and other things like that. But the introductory plan is just like $20 a year. So you sign up, come say hi to me.
I
Um,
love BookFunnel. I use it all the time.
yeah, it's great. And actually probably a lot of readers are familiar with BookFunnel because that's where they go to get a lot of their reader magnets and free books and things like that. We always send them to those links. So yeah, I didn't realize that you worked there. So yay. We're big fans.
Awesome.
So another question I was going to ask is just that constant, back and forth between authors. Are you a plotter or a pantser, or are you some combination of in between?
I'm a planster. I have to know where I'm going for the end. So I need to know at least where the ending is supposed to go and like any major points that would be significant for the characters along the way. But when it comes to actually writing the chapters, like I have a general outline that gets thrown away as soon as I start writing because the characters take over. So I don't I don't have a very strong discipline when it comes to writing. I'm like, okay, I know this is where I need to go, but I'm gonna see where everyone takes me
Mhm.
and go from there.
How about you,
Yeah.
Emma?
I'm Team Planter, which is ironic because I used to freelance plot and studied every plot system. But yeah, I am like Loren. If I try to plot, the characters will laugh at me. So I
They
always,
rebel.
yeah, they do. I start knowing the main conflict and like their wounds, their emotional wounds,
Mhm.
so I understand a little bit about who they are. But other than that, um, yeah, I have no control.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Dawn, who is trying to join us on her phone, I think, but you were kind of all upside down and sideways, and now you appear to be right side up again. So
I think I'm there. My husband had to bring me a charger, and then like I
Oh,
got logged
no.
on, and then like my phone said, "Do you want to shut off?" And I was like, "No." So I had to like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
we're glad
Oh.
you made it back. We're just
Yeah.
going over some questions that I've been kind of peppering Loren and Emma with. So I don't know if you've got anything tonight.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've asked this because clearly I've been distracted. But how did you choose your genre?
I did not ask that yet. That's a good one.
I started contemporary because I think I was reading a lot of contemporary, and I was reading a lot of authors like in a row because I'm a serial reader. So like when I get into a series, I got to finish it right away. And a lot of them were contemporary series. And I think I just naturally gravitated towards telling stories in a contemporary setting. But I've been dabbling in a little bit of paranormal romance. I have a short story in a dark fairy tales anthology that dives into a cross between a Black Swan, The Red Shoes by Hans Christian Andersen, and Center Stage. And with a demon trying to get home, and the ballerina is the source of power she doesn't know about. So I love reading everything. I'm an epic romantasy reader. But I started contemporary because I think that was what I was reading, and that's just where my characters were taking me. But I'm open to writing everything. I have a little bit of everything in my backlog of things I never finished. So, yeah.
Well, that was what I was going to ask next. For both of you, is there something that you read that you don't write?
High school bully romance.
Yeah,
That's like
don't write that.
guilty pleasure because no shaming, but yeah, I binge that stuff like it's Skittles. I'm 44, y'all, so that's why I'm laughing at myself.
I was just gonna say, I love how excited you were over that question. You like immediately started
It's
chuckling.
just so ironic. Like I would never write it in a million years, but I love to read it.
That's awesome.
A fantasy, but I want to write a fantasy, but I find fantasy to be intimidating with all the world building because there's so much that has to go into the world and the characters and like all the like if there's politics, what the politics are and the religion and like so I don't like to do things in half measures. So I haven't touched fantasy only because I don't have the story yet. But maybe one day. So, but yeah, I just recently read all of Zodiac Academy. Like I binged it, like in that whole world, I just binged it like nobody's business. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite thing? Let's have Emma answer this one first. What's your favorite thing about being an author?
That I can tell people I have voices in my head and it's legitimate. I'm not lying. Or telling a
Love
joke,
it.
I have voices in my head.
That actually makes me wonder, and it could be because I'm too White Claws in, but do other people that like aren't like artistic and write books but have voices in their head, are they actually like us? Like, are they actually like plotting stuff out and they just don't realize it? Anyways, I digress. But that made me think like all the
Maybe,
crazies are
Dawn.
actually just trying to. Is it the author in them trying to get out and they just don't realize that, and so that's why they go crazy? Maybe we're just kind of the people in life who have realized that in order to not go crazy, we got to put those voices down on paper. I don't know.
Maybe.
That took a weird turn. So let's move on.
All right. Loren, what's your favorite thing about being a writer? Or a published author, I should say. Or a writer.
I love finding that right combination of words that's just so satisfying. Like when you read it and you know that you've made an impact on yourself. Like, I didn't get to a section in this chapter 5 that I read, but there's a section that I wrote that stayed with me. Like, it's probably my favorite line in the whole book. So like getting those words connected correctly. Like, I love making that happen. I love the crafting of the writing and the characters. I love learning who my characters are. I'm a big, like, I got to know who they are before I write the story. So knowing who they are, discovering them, like writing with them before I actually write the story. That's my other big favorite thing.
So, speaking of characters, how do you figure out who your characters are going to be? Do they come to you fully formed, or do you have to dig around a bit, or how do you? I know some people will use Enneagram, or some people use character archetypes, or some people will use the emotional wound thesauruses. I mean, just how do you develop your characters?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. I think about, so usually there's a line, like a sentence or something that comes to me like through the character's voice, and then I'll do a lot of like writing in the character's voice to figure out what that voice sounds like. But then I'm also thinking about motivations, and like, well, I don't use like the charts or anything. Like, I discover them a lot through writing and figuring out what their goals are. And then like I've recently started creating emotional character arcs for my stories. So like, what's their journey emotionally? And that helps me really figure out like a lot of who they are. And then a lot of it's also just writing them out in the chapters. So, but I want to have a distinct voice before I make that happen. So that's my big focus, is finding their voice.
How about you, Emma?
Well, before I sit down to write the story, I know the wound and the general conflict, or at least I think I do. After that, it is, I have an alter ego called the scribe, which I talk to my readers in the scribe voice sometimes, because it does feel like I'm channeling the story sometimes, but I'll ask them questions. Like, this happened, how did you feel about that? Why did this happen? What's going on? And I'll let them tell me. And sometimes I'll get it wrong, which is how my current story went from 54,000 words to 100K, because I got something wrong. And they were like, no, we're going to go back and do this over again the right way. And I'm like, hey. So, but that's the beautiful thing about planting. Is you can discover who they are, and they take on their own life. And we authors, we understand, but it's hard to explain to other people that they really are their own people. And I think my readers may think I'm insane, because I'll be like, my characters won't shut up, y'all. I'm trying to tell her I want to keep going this way. And I'm like, but no, I'm not making this up. Like, I'm having these conversations with this character. Like, you sure you want to do this shit? I mean, oops.
Yeah, just refer them to previous videos, because literally you're not the only one that has said that on this show. Everybody's like, people don't believe me when I say like they won't, like they said this, not me. Like, yes, they're the ones that won't. They're the ones that say it. They're the ones that won't shut up.
Or my husband many times has said, like, how did writing go today? And I'll be like, my characters would not cooperate, He's like, but you made them up. You can make them do whatever you want. And I'm like, it does not work like that at all. It's almost like they were little paper dolls. And then once you kind of like, like, I don't know, Pinocchio, like, he's a real little boy now. And he gets, they just kind of like go and you no longer have control.
It was definitely a writer that wrote Pinocchio then, clearly. Right? All right. Well, we need to hear from Emma. Yep. And Dylan, I actually logged in like our way. And so I have a few things here. So I'm going to attempt this solo. There looks like I can do a couple things from here, from my phone. Solo layout, edit her name, or kick her from the studio. So I'm not gonna do that one, Emma. I promise. I'm gonna try the solo layout. If it doesn't work, you're gonna have to take over.
All right. We
Let's see
got
what
this.
happens. Let's see what happens. Did it work?
Yeah.
It didn't work, did it? It did? Can you mute us then? Because I don't think I can.
Okay, I am high compliance, so I'm going to put on a timer. Yes, I'm that girl. Okay. There we go. All right. I am going to read from Night in His Eyes, the story where the characters will not shut up. It is an adult dark fae Romeo and Juliet fantasy romance, and this scene is taking place after a ceasefire between houses Ferone and Montague. And our heroine, Erin Capulet, the Lady of Ferone, is at a ball with her family, and she has just been seated next to her arch enemy, who is also her soulmate, Prince Renaud of House Montague. What is this? I ask, gripping my armrests, idle hands and all that. This, Renaud says, is dinner. He leans back in his chair, resting his hand next to his plate, the hand closest to me. I can promise you, Prince, that flippancy will get you the exact opposite of what you want from me, so by all means, continue as you are. You don't know what I want from you. The hand begins to curl, then relaxes. I merely sought to ease your tension. This casually authoritative male smashed us into submission with a flick of power mere weeks ago, pulled 2 wyverns from the sky with the irritation of a parent chiding a reckless toddler. Only an hour past, his lust scorched me, and he wants me to believe he cares about my nerves? That implies, however, he continues in an almost idle tone, that there is something that will get me what I want from you. It's less diverting to simply ask you your price, so I won't. You can never meet it. Never, lady, is a time far longer than you are currently able to conceive. His gaze goes almost contemplative. I've learned in my time that there is no such thing as a never. Those words chill me. He says the most innocent things, but they aren't innocent at all. I am learning that those with true power don't have to make overt, bloody threats. The simple ones work far better. Who is the real Renaud? The lethal warrior, the urbane prince, the smoldering lover, the feral male in rut, or this glacial, untouchable high lord? Death is final, I say. He angles his head. Death is not final, or I would never have been born. I glimpse the other, the Leviathan, a monster in the deep, of shadowy wings and maelstrom eyes. Old one, every instinct in me whispers, flee. Renaud is not the one to fear. Why sit me next to you? An invisible rope stretches between us, my demand for answers versus his palpable reluctance to give them to me. Why not simply accept your place? My desire to amuse you, why think about it? He smiles, brief and thin, as if to say, why start thinking now? Because my place is where I decide. You haven't given me the impression that for all your plans, you're taking what I want into consideration. What? The word is chipped from a block of ice, makes you imagine I care what you want. Because I would even now be sprawled on the ground, bleeding. He pulled back earlier, I admit, and he didn't have to. Nora said he might, and that his restraint is to be feared. Because any other High Lord would have killed me by now. His gaze pales to a whisper of moonlight. After tonight, I will know the moon for the harbinger of monsters it is, and shy from it when full. Sweet halfling, I am not any other High Lord. I will not spite myself. The gaping maw of this evening continues to widen, salivating, patiently waiting for me to sauce myself and leap right in. I hope I'm dry and under-seasoned. Renaud turns from me, and I remember we aren't alone. I forget so much around him, drawn into his spiral web. This feels like a losing battle, and I grasp for any purchase on a slippery, tilting deck stacked against me. But, he says, I concede your point. The admission is unexpected enough, I shut up. Besides, trying to think like him is exhausting. Servants bring in platters upon platters of hot food. Roasted fowl, racks of lamb, fish on beds of greens, vegetables nestled on pillows of steaming spiced grains, with scattered trays of fruit and cheese for those who prefer lighter fare. Traditional Evernessy dishes. My attention snares on several more platters familiar to Baba and I, and perhaps Manuel and Luvenia. Ah, my father exclaims, you must have some, Aaron. Mukimo na ugali na niyama homa. Elegant bottles of beer are set at the table in front of me and my father. Picking one up, I sniff, then take a sip. I set it down and glance at the platters of meat. What meat is that? I ask my father, also slipping into Kikuyu. Lamb and goat, he replies. It is on your plate. Eat. Nihoye ya niyurio, since it is beer in the bottles, or close enough. Lamb and goat. It's the Evernesi version of Kumenya Muchi and Hohanda Ithiki. Not perfect, but an outsider's attempt to at least give a nod to Kikuyu marriage customs. How did he know? There isn't even internet in Everen. He would have had to interrogate one of my cousins. He had time to do that? When? I meet my father's gaze, and it is too bland, too pleasant. Diabolical. Renaud is diabolical. He knew before the evening began he would stake a claim. His chefs would have needed time to prepare. Serving human dishes from my father's Kenyan culture is a subtle way to offer me, and Baba in particular, as my lord and father, honor. The prince must have intended a courtship all along. Auntie will box your ears if you eat mukimo with a fork, I hear myself say, still in our language. My father waves his hand. What she does not know, sister cannot punish me for. I see. What is my silence worth to you then, Baba? He laughs, eyes crinkling at the corners. It almost makes me smile, and I think that's Renaud's purpose. He expects these rapid-fire shifts, these manipulations, to be dizzying, but I can keep up, as long as his hands aren't on me, which I must recall for the future. Don't let the prince touch me if I want to keep my brain between my ears and not my legs. Baba fixes me another plate, uncaring of such fancy company we are in, and hands it to Prince Renaud, who places it in front of me. I ignore it all and reach for the bottle of wine, stomach curdling. I will not drink the beer. That's too much like accepting the courtship. The prince says nothing, though he notes my choice. He doesn't have to say anything. I survey the feast. Our house has been budgeting for years to support our household, plus cover increasing punitive tax burdens. For every Montague warrior we've killed, we've been levied blood guilt. The Capulet Montague feud has beggared us. And all for what? A dispute with sketchy origins? Of course, that long-ago grievance is now a pretext. Now we fight for vengeance far more personal, and also because if we don't, we'll be crushed. Otieno, pardon Lady Erin and I for neglecting you, the prince murmurs, sipping his wine. You've raised an interesting daughter. I almost dropped my wine glass. Not only were Dylann and Embryo the last people other than Aunt Fatma to use my father's non-anglicized name, but the prince spoke nearly flawless Kikuyu. My accent is Evernesi sprinkled with French and seasoned by American English. He sounds almost exactly like me, except for his slow stretch of intonation that is purely old realm. My mother would speak much the same. She is the pride of my old age, Baba acknowledges. Your Kikuyu is exceptional. You had none the last we spoke, I believe. Ah, I have an unusual teacher. The experience has been immersive. That is the best way to learn. Baba pauses, and his voice goes softer. My wife didn't tell me you learned it. Renaud stares into his wine glass. Muriel did not know. I don't understand my father. How can he look at the prince with compassion, almost if they are simply two males grieving the same female, one a wife, the other, by his word, a sister? She would not blame you, Baba says, and we all know he isn't speaking of the prince hiding his learning of our language, nor do I. He looks up and meets Baba's gaze before glancing away. And now my father, the bloody diplomat of Everen, turns his attention to me. We extend grace to family and ask that grace likewise be extended. The history of our houses intertwines beyond centuries. We are not meant to be at odds. The prince is silent. Silent is the same as assent. Then my heart freezes. My father's steady gaze, his words. He knows about embryo. Agitated, I drink. After the third glass, Juliet intercepts the servant with a curt shake of her head. I see it only because I twist in my seat to wave someone down for more. Prince Renaud has somehow misplaced the bottle out of my reach. I sit in my chair, fuming. Never mind them. I'll find something harder than alcohol once I'm home. It's probably a good thing they cut me off, because a wave of dizziness blurs my vision, my muscles stiffening as my jaw grinds. I've avoided this for weeks, skirted disaster earlier with Renaud. No, not here. Please, not here. My father says nothing. He won't bring attention to my weakness. I count several long minutes in my head. Around me is laughter and conversation, the clink of dinnerware. No one notices my rigid posture. Once the attack eases, I lift my strained gaze to my father's pinched expression. When a servant offers food this time, I accept, nausea roiling in my gut, and try to choke something down. Stupid mistake. Lady Erin, Renaud says, voice pitched for my ears only. Are you unwell? Damn him. Of course he'd notice. Oh, there's the timer.
Sorry. I'm getting everybody unmuted and everything. There we go.
Yes.
I found a typo when I was reading, and I wanted to stop and...
Fix it. Yeah, I get that.
Okay, there we go. I got it. Okay.
Isn't that infuriating when that happens, especially after how many people have looked over that? And
Yeah.
Yep.
But honestly, I gotta say your timing was impeccable.
Perfect. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow, that was
Yes.
I don't know, just your author voice just totally. I mean, it almost like sounded like I was, listening to Shakespeare. I mean, it was
Mhm.
you have a beautiful voice for what you're writing. So
Been practicing, because I'm telling my readers I'm going to start self-narrating. So
mhm.
I was just gonna ask though. I was wondering, do the voices in your head when you read, like the accents in your head, not voices, the accents in your head, can you execute them the way that they are in your head?
I can... okay, so the fantasy accents are weird because they speak the fantasy fae language, but she's half Kenyan and she speaks that language. And it's set in Canada, alternate Earth Canada, so they speak French and English too. So they're like polyglots in this city. So I'm like, what would that even sound like?
Yeah.
Oh no! So I
Well,
probably...
that's what I was trying to hear in your reading. Like I was like, oh, I wonder if in her head they're just like this much more. Because honestly, me when I read, I'm like, I don't do anything in my book justice according to like the dialects I hear in my brain, So with your like the various dialects that you were talking about, and you were like, I was like, oh yeah, like I love how you explained how each person was according to the various dialects that they're speaking, like in all in one.
Mhm.
It was great.
That's
Mhm.
the joy of fantasy. You can geek out on things, and one of the things I like to geek out is languages and food. So there's a lot of languages.
Jen says you should totally narrate your books.
Thank you, Jen.
Oh.
I'm gonna try.
No, that was great.
Yeah.
We have not had any questions pop up, so I've got a few more if we want to keep going.
Let's do a couple. Dylan, I got to be honest, I cannot see any time on my
Okay.
phone here, so
Okay,
you'll have
I'll
to
keep
tell
us
us
on
when
track.
Okay. Sorry.
The show always goes on. That's one thing that we have done from the get-go. We've had all kinds of fun things happen on Romance Happy Hour before, and we just keep going. So no
We've
worries
had one
there.
where nobody could hear me or Dylan, but they could our viewers or our
Yeah,
readers, our featured
that was fun.
authors. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
So, what is the most challenging part of writing fiction for both of you? And Emma, why don't you take this one first? Or for writing in your particular genre, or
The most challenging thing, honestly, for me is patience. To give and that's why I took the job at Book Funnel, to give myself time to let the story unfold as it will. I used to be like a 4 to 6 week a book author, and I'm naturally a 6 month a book author. So, and Becca Syme, I adore Becca Syme, and she got in my head a lot. And I realized I'm also an author who has to do a lot of thinking before I even start putting words on paper. And I didn't give myself that time before, but now I'm learning you got to just accept that you're not going to crack out a book in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so interesting because we've had we've had hundreds of authors on the show now. Everybody has their own process.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really interesting because some people think like, oh my gosh, like you could never write a good book in 6 weeks, and some authors can. And some authors, really have to think about things and really dive into it and go deeper. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with either way. It's been just really interesting to think that, as we've learned, that's everybody has a different way.
Yeah.
And
They do.
we have a lot of things in common, like a lot of authors will do things similarly and everything. But yeah, it's like you can't really fight your natural.
Yes.
I mean, you can, but it always seems to come back to bite you.
Right. So
If you fight your natural kind of style and everything.
right. So Dylan, you need to come and talk to my mother because she's always like every time she hears like an interview with an author, she tells me like, you know what you need to do? I listened to this podcast where this
Right.
author said that she writes this way. That's what you need to do. And I'm just like, mother, shut up. So you should talk to my mom. Yeah.
I
totally
don't know.
agree.
I find it super interesting just to see, everybody's process. So how about you, Loren?
I think it's I have so many projects that are unfinished, that I often question, like, can I really write a book, and get past this tendency to just hyperfixate on the problems I don't know how to solve yet. And the thing that I've learned to do in the last couple of years is write what you have in your head, write the story that needs to be told now. It's a work in progress. I'm working on it every day. But that imposter syndrome is real, and it's with me every day. So I'm fighting it all the time. And that's, and the fact that even the stories that I've published, I don't feel like they're the complete versions of what I want to write. So, there's either expansion through like book 2 or, The Reluctant Star, which I want to create. It's a 54,000 word book right now, but I can easily double that. And that's the goal, so like getting the stories down to what I want it to be. Like those are the goals. And with, writing as a part-time job, what I love to do is all very part-time. So it's the time management is also an issue for me too.
Yeah. Time management is my issue.
Yeah.
Dylan, that's actually a good segue to Jen's second question there.
Yeah, I got it. So Jen wants to know, how do you navigate around writer's block? Whoever wants to jump in there first, go ahead.
I don't get writer's block.
Oh.
I get places in the story where I need to stop and step away for a time. And I've learned that that's not a block. That's your brain, your subconscious saying, okay, now we need to process. But genuine writer's block, when I've talked to other authors through it and gotten to the bottom of it, it's usually because they did not understand what the character's conflict was and what their goal was. And I'm like, okay, well, of course you don't know what they're going to do next because you don't know what they're trying to solve. So in that sense, but yeah.
Interesting. How about you, Loren?
I read back a lot. I'm a slow writer simply because I need to reflect on what I've already done first to know where I need to go. So I read and then I write. And when I can't figure out the problem, that needs to get solved, I wait for my characters to come to me and say, I need to be this needs to be written. So that's the skill set that I'm learning to do now, is to say, okay, if I can't write this part now, I'm going to put a pin in it and then I'll come back to it. But right now I'm going to write what needs to be written in my head because they're talking to me. So it's the best I can do.
Well, and I've often found, I mean, as frustrating as it is, the harder I try, the worse it gets. And so then, it's like the fixes come when I'm in the shower, or, like on a walk, or doing the dishes, or when, you're doing things where you're not like, oh my gosh, I need to fix this and figure it out. And all that, the fixes come when you just let your brain kind of naturally, at least for me.
Or I'm
It's
going in that
frustrating.
place. I'm going there, Dylan, or when
Oh,
in
yeah.
doubt,
Or you add a
insert
beaver.
Or you
Yeah,
insert a beaver.
that was my advice to Dawn the first time she said she was stuck. I
Yep.
told her to put a beaver in her story.
When
And
in
she
doubt,
did.
insert a beaver. And I did, and I do every time now, and it always works. So
Yep.
if you ever do get writer's block, insert a beaver and then let us know about it, so we can let all of
Yep.
our viewers know that you've inserted a beaver into your
Mhm.
book, and go find the little Easter egg of where you had writer's block.
Well,
Okay.
and it was
I love that.
particularly fitting for your book because they
Yes.
went to the museum and they saw an exhibit about the river
No,
and the
the
beavers.
first one was because it was they were going down a river.
Oh, that was the
It was a
logging book. That's
camp.
right.
Yeah, and
Yep.
they were going down a river, and you were like,
Yep.
when in doubt, insert a beaver, because it works both ways, right? You're a romance author,
Yep.
and
Can I ask
river.
why
Yes.
beavers?
It's a long story, but I will
story.
summarize it super quickly.
A long story, we're too sober.
Yeah. Basically, the story is that I live in Minnesota. I grew up in Texas, so Minnesota is not like my native environment. And we went up north, and we have this little tiny cabin now. In the first meeting of the Lake Association we went to, we were very much out of place, but I couldn't stop laughing because they were talking about all of the nuisance beavers on our lake, and that they were gonna, like we had to pool funds and all this to bring in a professional beaver trapper. And I mean, I'm sitting there as a romance author, like elbowing my husband like this the whole time, because all of these people are so seriously talking about this huge beaver issue and all that. And I was just, I mean, because I have the sense of humor of a 14-year-old boy, I was losing. I couldn't hold it together and everything. And so then I just thought that was funny. So then I was talking in my reader group about, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was such a thing as nuisance beavers. And then it just kind of, Dawn and I just talked about, we spent a lot of time talking about beavers, and now it's kind of like this inside joke. And now, and then
I come along writing a logging book, and she's like, well, when in doubt, insert a beaver, and it's all good.
That's right.
And so that's actually our mascot, like the romance.
I love that.
Beaver. Dylan at one point during a Christmas party for us bought us both Bucky Beaver onesies, which I wear quite often actually.
our hooded Bucky the Beaver pajamas.
Oh my gosh.
Yep,
I
it's
love
in my
it.
camp trailer, and every time I get cold while camping, I get my beaver pajamas on, and everybody's like, what is that? And I'm like, it's Bucky, shut up. Like,
now, if you were a paranormal romance author, that beaver would have been your fated mate.
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
That's why it works in any situation when you're a romance author. Any situation. Like, like erotica, beaver. Like, I mean,
I haven't actually considered writing beaver shifters, but I wouldn't
beaver shifters.
totally.
There you go.
I wouldn't.
That sounds
totally
like a new
dismiss that.
pseudonym for you, Dylan.
What?
A new pseudonym for you, beaver shifters. Like, you're gonna go into that.
I thought you were trying to say that my new pen name, I should be like Beaver someone. I was going to say no.
If you get a third pen name, you should go PNR and write beaver shifters.
I could write beaver shifters. I don't know what the market is for that, but
I don't either.
I think I would really get a big kick out of it. So yeah, someday we might have to just write a beaver shifter, Dawn, just for romance happy hour.
That would be so much fun.
Well, the Beavers have put us over time,
Like
so
always.
yeah.
Yes.
All
right.
I was gonna say, are you gonna wrap us up? I was waiting
I
for you to
will.
wrap us up.
Yes, I
Okay.
will wrap us up, even though I can't push the button, so I'm going to have to count on you.
I'll be the button pusher.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. Oh, actually, I can. It says end there on the bottom
Okay.
of my phone. But you do it because I don't know if I'll be able to push
Okay.
it down
Well, why
there.
don't we say goodnight to everyone first?
Let's say goodnight.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us for Romance Happy Hour. We will see you in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks. The
Yep.
second Thursday of this month. Summer's already going super
The
fast.
fourth Thursday, because it is the second Thursday.
Yes, see, that's why I have Dylan around, is to correct me when I've had too many
That's right.
white claws on the show. And Emma, I hope you finish that bottle of wine. And Loren, whatever you're drinking, I hope you finish that as well. Just chug it and know that we very much enjoyed having you on the show tonight. And readers, we will see you on the fourth Thursday of this month. And thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you later.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you, Emma and Loren, both of you, for being with us. We really enjoyed hearing from your work and meeting you. So, yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.